There's a chance coming up next week for you to join us on Capitol Hill and have your voice heard. Joining us now with more on the Legislative Conference is Kendal Frazier, CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Kendall, for those viewers who may not be as familiar with Legislative Conference, let's just start by talking about how does the conference itself work?
Kevin, we bring in our state affiliates and cattlemen from all over the United States to spend a few days in Washington, D.C., meeting with their congressional delegation. And also we have meetings with the regulatory agencies at the Department of Interior, EPA, USDA, the regulatory agencies that we work with. So it's a chance for us to interact with the cattle industry and the government. It's a very important policy conference for us.
Lots of staff time and lots of volunteer time goes into that conference. Why is it so important for the cattle industry?
Because it's important that the regulatory agencies and the people there in the Trump administration and the congressmen hear directly from cattlemen back in the states, because that's who's really put them there. And NCBA has a presence in Washington, D.C., but we're only as strong as our state organizations are and their relationships they build with the people in Washington, D.C. And it's also important because we go in and talk to them about our priorities for the cattle industry, and we articulate that, and we have discussions about those with the people in Washington, D.C.
And so for folks that are already registered, what should they expect? And for folks that may not be registered, how can they get registered to join us in D.C.?
If they're interested in going, they can go on our website, beefusa.org, registered, come in. I would encourage them to contact their state cattlemen's association. So there's some liaison work going on there because our state cattlemen's associations will really head the delegations in Washington, D.C. But just go on and register. It'll have all the information about the location, the times, the schedules, the hotels, all the information about the conference.
Super. And what are the key topics that you folks will be discussing with our leaders?
Here are some of the topics we're going to be talking about, and those will be our policy priorities for this year. One of those will be fake meat. We want to make sure that USDA is the regulatory agency that takes the lead on the regulation of these new alternative protein products. Trade will be another issue we'll talk about in Washington, D.C. We'll also talk about the dietary guidelines and that process that's starting. And we'll also talk about several regulatory related issues regarding private lands, public lands, transportation related issues, tax related issues that we'll be talking to both the congressional delegations and the Trump administration officials.
Lots of topical issues that have direct impact on those of us at farms and ranches across the country. Why is it so important, given those issues, for folks to be an NCBA member?
Well, it's extremely important because we have a united voice. We can do things, and our state cattlemen's associations can do things that you can't do as an individual. So we are so much more effective when we speak with one voice on these issues in Washington, D.C. And we have a full-time staff in Washington, D.C. that represents cattlemen every day on these important issues.
You and the rest of your team have a busy week ahead. We wish you great luck for a very productive week in our nation's capital.
Thank you, Kevin.
NCBA's Legislative Conference runs next Tuesday through Thursday in Washington, D.C., and it's not too late to attend. You can register on site or ahead of time on our website. Just go to ncba.org for all the details.